So we're back in with another beginner's guide video for Marvel Future Revolution. Now in this series of videos we look at the different characters that are available in the game and we cover everything you need to know about them. Now the game of course has just launched globally, however I have been playing it for the last 2 months via the soft launch version that was out in Canada only. I have all characters at level 100 and I've spent a fair amount of time on them as well. That's how I'm able to get these guides out just as the game is actually globally launched. Now what will the beginner's guide video actually cover? So we start off with an overview of the characters so you can get a good feel of them, and that way if you like the sounds of them we can go on and we can discuss them in more detail. So it's the overview first. Following on from that we talk about the potential stats available on the character. We then have specializations next. These can really transform your characters and take them to another level. Next up I'll show off some of my favourite skills for the hero in question. We then have a discussion around the outfits, battle badges and omega cards that are available and which ones would suit this specific character we're doing the guide on. And then finishing up we run over a few fun build options that I've been playing around with as well. So the character of course is the awesome Spider-Man. So if you like the sounds of that, let's jump in and let's start off with the overview. When the game first came out then and many players were still leveling their characters, there was a lot of talk in chat about how weak Spidey actually was, and he actually became a bit of a meme in the global chat in regards to this. But as players actually leveled him up more, unlocked his potential, unlocked his specializations and started playing around with his outfits, they realised how powerful he actually is, and he went from everyone believing he was the weakest character in the game to many people actually saying, and I wouldn't argue too much with this, that he could be one of the strongest if not the strongest characters in the game. Now his kit, like the other characters I've actually covered, it matches the hero perfectly. Spider-Man really should be all about dodging, being agile and crowd control, and that's exactly what he's got in his kit. And that combination makes him very good in PvP, but it still makes him very good in PvE as well. He's not the kind of character that can put out burst damage, but he's got the survivability and he's got the crowd control, which is great in PvE. Now he has 2 debuffs from the crowd control perspective. It's weapon and shock. So his weapon, when you apply 5 stacks of this, it decreases movement speed by 30%, accuracy rate by 15% for 7 seconds. On regular enemies, once you actually stack this and cast it as well, they get a cocoon on them. You can see it on screen at the moment, and that will stun the enemy for 4 seconds, which is incredible. Doesn't unfortunately work on bosses, but it's great for taking out ads. The shock debuff he has, it's 5 stacks once again, and this one decreases the enemy's attack by 25%, so that will work on bosses. So in his kit he's got crowd control for regular mobs and you get crowd control for bosses, and then he's got his survivability via the dodge as well. So that's everything you need to know to start off with. So let's now jump in and talk about his potential. So what I'll do is I'll give a very quick breakdown on what potential actually is if you are new to the game. So you've got these 4 different tiers and you get 3 stats within each tier, and they're essentially hero specific stats. They'll be geared towards how the developers are hinting that you should actually play for a hero. So for Spider-Man you'll get increases to his dodge, you'll get increases to his debuff, accuracy and so on. Now what I've actually done to make the stats easier to read is I've actually put them into infographics. So let's jump over and check the infographic for the potential section for them. So we have all the stats listed here, but you want to jump straight down to the bottom to the total. This gives you a good idea of what you can actually get when you do max out the potential system. Now you've got your standard stats like attack, defense and hit points. I would ignore defense on Spidey because it's not really useful on him because you'll be dodging so often, but your attack and hit points can be very nice. In regards to the other ones we have right at the bottom, you've got dodge rate, debuff resistance and debuff accuracy as well. The 2 that are exceptionally important is dodge rate and debuff accuracy. Dodge rate, when you're dodging you're not taking any damage at all. Spidey can actually get over 100% dodge rate if you actually stack it, and he's got a mechanic within his specializations where he can increase his damage based on his dodge rate, so that's really important. And then debuff accuracy, that's all about how likely you will be to actually apply a debuff. So with Spidey that is exceptionally important as well. Now do bear in mind when it comes to these main stats on Spidey, that's the dodge rate and the debuff accuracy, you can also get them as bonus stats on your outfits and mega cards, and you can even get them on cores as well. So that's other places you can find these important stats for them. Now the next section we'll check out will be the specializations. Specialisations then are unlocked at level 70. You can equip 4 of them at a time. They can be incredibly powerful. The material to actually unlock them comes via raids, and you can only do so many raids a day. So this is time gated in a way, but once again the end results you can actually get from it can be pretty amazing. So once again we have an infographic, so let's jump over to that. For Specialisations then, Spidey does exceptionally strong. I would say there's potentially 3 that are almost locked in, they're that good, and you can only select 4 in total, so there's not a lot of wiggle room there in regards to what you actually choose. But to run through them, we start off with Green Goblin's Madness. I would say this is one that's probably locked in, so you increases your total damage by 28.5%, which is absolutely huge. Decreases your defense by 18.8%, which is interesting. I don't think any other characters have that. However, it's not that bad a downside, because Spidey's not about defense at all, he's all about dodge, so the increase in damage is most definitely worth it. We have Grasp of the Octopus next, so this one increases Spider Combat class skill damage by 20%. If you're using a large number of those skills, then that's one you're going to want to go for. Scorpion's Pursuit is next. This ties in with the one above, and you'll normally notice that synergy wise you'll have ones in the same tree that can all work together, but Scorpion's Pursuit recovers dodge skill gauge by 36% when using a Spider Combat class skill. So if you're spamming your Spider Combat skills, you'll be dodging all over the screens, and when you're dodging you get your invincibility frames as well. We then have Electro's Agility, so this one converts 40% of dodge rate into damage. This is locked in, you need to go for this regardless of the setup you go for in Spidey, because you're going to be stacking dodge and this will get you more damage as a result of it. This is absolutely amazing, make a beeline for this as soon as you can. Moving on to the Spider Sense tree, we have another great specialisation node. This is Great Responsibility. You recover hit points by 35% instantly and increase dodge rate to its max for 2.2 seconds upon receiving fatal damage. The cooldown is 600 seconds, so that's every 5 minutes. I believe this works in every mode apart from Spec Ops and potentially a Mega War. Spec Ops, without a doubt, it doesn't work in a Mega War. I would need to do a little bit more testing on it, but this is very good, getting that other revive in your Dimension Duel, and even when you're going up against bosses and Blitz and Raid and so on, is really pretty amazing. The next one is Jumping Spider, increases dodge rate by 30% for 5 seconds when guard is broken. The whole thing is, if you're stacking dodge, you shouldn't have your guard broken because you're not getting hit, so I really don't like this one at all. We then have Journalistic Spirit, so it increases ultimate skill gauge recovery speed by 52.5% for 5 seconds when using a Web Tech class skill. The cooldown is 8 seconds. You could probably get your ultimate up pretty quick with this, but his ultimate, while it's nice, it's nothing incredibly amazing or anything like that, so I probably wouldn't bother with this one here. Finishing off this tree anyway, we have Transcended Sense, so increases max dodge rate by 15%. Sounds incredible, a flat 15% dodge. However, it looks like, this is really strange, but it looks like when it says increases max dodge rate, that means if you're only at 100% dodge, it will increase it up to 115. If you're at, for example, let's say 50% dodge, it won't increase it to 65 because you're not at max dodge rate. Really odd, I don't know if it's a bug, that's the way it works. So the way it does work at the moment anyways, only if you're over 100%, so it's not really worthwhile unless you are a whale, but I'll keep an eye on it, and if it changes in the future I'll add a pinned comment to this particular video. Finishing the last tree, we have webbing that comes up here. With this one here, you get Web Cartridge. So this one here increases duration of debuffs to enemy by 30%. If you're going for a crowd control build, I would say it's most definitely worthwhile going for. Your debuffs when you cocoon enemies, it's 4 seconds, so you're going to pull it up to about 5-6 seconds, which is really nice to stun an enemy for that time period. We then have Web Cartridge. This one is the capture variant, so 35% chance to stack web by 1 upon applying web effect. So this is just a way to stack your debuffs even quicker. Once again, if you're going for a debuff build, you'd be wanting to use this. We then have Web Cartridge Corrosion, increases damage dealt to cocoon targets by 40%. Another really nice one, in fact, if you are going for a crowd control build. If you are, you probably want to use near enough this whole tree. The final one anyway is Web Cartridge Analysis, so increases debuff accuracy by 10% for each web shooter's class skill equipped. So that's all the specializations there. As mentioned, there's a lot of really nice ones. I would say maybe not as many as 3 are locked in, possibly 2. Electro's Agility you definitely want to go for, and probably great responsibility, although I do really like Green Goblin's Madness as well. But let me know if there's any certain ones that you think are locked in specialisations that you must go for in the comments below, and let's now jump in and let's talk about the skills that are available on them. When it comes to abilities then, heroes actually have access to 32, and that's not including their ultimate or basics. I'm not going to talk about all of them. Instead, for 8 of the different trees, I've selected an interesting ability that gives you some insight into an interesting aspect of Spider-Man. So I'm showing off this first one here because it's got the webbing debuff. You can see it decreases movement speed by 30% and accuracy rate by 15% for 7 seconds upon reaching a max stat count. Now, the max stat count is 5, so with multiple this ability or multiple abilities that can apply webbing, you can apply this pretty fast. On your regular adds, it will cocoon them for 4 seconds upon reaching the max stat count, so it doesn't work on supervillains or bosses. If it did, it would probably be a bit too OP. The next ability here, I'm showing this one off purely for the fact that it's a nice single target ability, because a lot of his kit is around AoEs and so on, but it does have some single target in it as well. We then have Spider Swing up next. This is an interesting one because it shows you different forms of crowd control he has. He has his webbing, of course, but you can see with this attack here, you attack the enemy with the web swing, you deal damage, and then with an additional attack, you knock down that attacked enemy as well. And he has a lot of attacks that can knock down or knock back the targets, which can be really useful. We have Webcraft next. You can see you've got your webbing debuff, but on top of that, it's pretty amazing with this one. It stuns the enemy for 3 seconds when the skill lands as well, and it's on a pretty low 16-second cooldown, near enough, with a 3-second stun, so that's really pretty amazing. We then move on to his second debuff he has. So he's got the webbing, but he's also got shock. So this one here, you can see it decreases attack by 25% for 7 seconds upon reaching max stat count. So this will be really nice on bosses, not so good on your mobs. On your mobs you want to do your webbing, but on your bosses you want to do shock instead. We then have Spider Grenade, really interesting mechanic. You can see with the animation here that it bounces the enemy up and down multiple times. Once again, it won't actually bounce up bosses or anything like that, but pretty nice ability. Spider Bot Swarm is up next. We're showing this one off because with this you'll summon spider bots. They aid you in combat, so they'll do damage, but on top of that they'll actually summon a hologram of Spider-Man as well, and that hologram will explode and it will deal shock damage to them. Now, finishing up, another ability to help kind of manipulate the enemies and how they're moving about. So with this one here, it's Spider Bowler, but this one you knock back the enemy when the skill lands, and then you knock down the enemy when the skill lands once again. So that is all the abilities for Spider-Man. So let's jump in now and let's talk about the outfits that are available and which abilities they would actually complement. When it comes to this section, then what I generally like to do is recommend a non-regional set and then a regional set, because it's going to take you a long time to craft your regional one. Now with other heroes that I've actually done videos for, it was quite obvious what non-regional set you would go for. For Spidey personally, there's none that are really sticking out too much for me, so what I would say is if you've got a particular one you like, let me know in the comments below and let me know why you're actually running that whilst you're trying to craft your actual regional one. But in regards to regional, I would say the best one to actually go for, Spidey's at his best when he's doing his crowd control. Obviously his dodge as well, but none of his outfits really affect that, but when he's doing his crowd control. So the one that I would recommend is this car outfit. So you're getting your attack with that, you're getting your dodge rate, and then you're getting your web shooter class upgrades as well there. Can't really recommend any of the other regional sets. I was looking into the WebTech one for an alternative build, but he actually only has 2 WebTech skills, so this wouldn't be worth increasing. You're looking for at a minimum 3 skills that you're going to buff when you're crafting your regional sets. So that's the ones I would recommend anyway. There's no non-regional that I can actually point out, but for the regional one it is just this car outfit. So next, let's talk about the battle badges that are available and which ones you would benefit from. For the battle badges on characters, you always start off with your Maestro Blitz first. This gives you your supervillain damage. It actually works really well on Spidey because he's got tons of survivability, he has tons of crowd control, but the one thing he lacks a little bit is damage. So this helps him boost his damage numbers when you're going up against bosses. Moving on from there, once you start to head into the Dark Zone, you're probably looking for more damage. So honestly, what I would say is most likely your Lord of the Desert drops from Maestro, or potentially Daughter of Thanos, which drops from Nebula, and this one would give you your Defense Pierce. But that's the battle badges I would recommend. Of course, you've got your PvP ones, they're self-explanatory, so I'm not going to actually run over that, but if you're PvP and you would go for them, you would favour increase over decrease in regards to damage. But yeah, that's the battle badges. Let's talk about the Omega cards now. For this Omega card section then we split this into two infographics, the reason being there's certain Omega card sets that require cards that can only be found within the store, so this first section is more for people that aren't actually spending in the game. The two sets that would work nice on them, you get Xander 4, it's bumping up your super villain and villain damage, and damage is something you can lack a little bit, and then you've got the set bonus of stamina recovery, and sometimes his stamina does actually run down I've found, so that can help out, and then you've got the ultimate skill recovery, not as important, but the super villain damage and the stamina recovery is nice on him. The one that I'd probably prefer to go for would be the Sakaar 2 set, so it's offering hit points, attack and also defense pierce, and then on top of that is your set bonus for 2 sets. You've got your dodge rate, and once again you can convert that into damage via your specialisations, and then you've got debuff resistance as well there. But that's the sets that anyone should be able to unlock. Let's look at the ones that are in a way gated behind the store. So with these sets here, what I've done next then, I've included how many special cards you need so you can get a good idea how hard it is to actually complete them. Now, if you are running Spidey for PvP mainly, which would definitely be a good shout, you would go for Dark Zone 4 or Dark Zone 5 as your card set, because you're getting your PvP damage increase or PvP damage decrease. If you had to choose one over the other, I would definitely go for the damage increase. In regards to PvE, I would probably go for Midgardia 6, but I would only use 4 cards. I would take the supervillain damage increase, I would take the defense pierce, and then I would move back to the first set we looked at a moment ago, the Sakaar set that offered the additional dodge rate for just 2 cards. So I would actually mix and match the sets, because of course you are able to do that. But that's all the Omega card sets. Let's finish up now talking about some of the build options that are available. If you're looking to run Spider-Man, then I would strongly recommend you actually lean into the crowd control aspects on him, because they are a lot of fun, and no matter how hard you push it, he's not going to be able to compete with certain characters like Black Widow when it comes to damage and melting bosses. So yeah, just have fun with the crowd control, and that's the builds I'll be talking about. The first one's all about the webbing. So you're using web tech here, you summon your spider bots, you can web up enemies exceptionally quick. We then move on to web shooter abilities. We've got quite a few of them, so the regional set I would recommend for this would be the Sakaar set. But this one here will pull enemies together. Now after pulling them together, you can use another web shooter ability. This is the one that does a big slam. You've pulled enemies together, you slam them, you'll decrease their movement speed, and you'll actually stun them as well with this, so amazing combination. If they're not yet cocooned, then you follow up with this one here, which is a web tech ability, and they should be cocooned, and then at that point you can drop back to your web shooters. Now this is an ability that if there's multiple targets, it will hit various different targets. If there's only one target, then it will actually just fire all the attacks on them, doing a decent amount of damage. So for that reason I have that at the end of the rotation there. But that's the setup if you want to be a Spider-Man, just kind of swinging about, webbing everyone up, which feels really great. Let's talk about the next build option. With this next setup here, I would still use the regional Sakaar set, so you can kind of freely switch between the two of them once you've crafted your regional set. But this one's once again all about crowd control, but it's more about shock. So we've changed the spider bots so they'll shock rather than web. We then have another shock ability with this one here. It is web tech for it, and it's spider grenade. We would follow that up once again with another shock ability, just to make sure we can apply all the stacks and get that damage decrease, and then from there we start to do some damage and more focused crowd control for any enemies that may be left. So we'll fire this off. If you're going up against the boss, by this point he's most definitely going to have stacks of shock, so he's doing less damage, and then you can then start to put out a nice amount of damage here. So that's the two build options. One's definitely more focused on the crowd control side of things, that's the webbing one, that's the one I personally prefer, and this one here would be better on bosses because you're reducing the damage that the boss does and you're doing a little bit more damage on them as well. So that is everything you need to know for Spider-Man in Marvel Future Revolution. If the video has been helpful, take the time to hit the like, share and subscribe button. Bear in mind, I've done these videos for all 8 launch characters as well, and going forward when we get new characters coming out in the game, I will look to do beginner's guides for them as well. So yeah, as always, hope the video's been helpful. Thanks for tuning in, stay safe, I'll see you all again soon.